ChatGPT seems to be one of the hottest topics of conversation in the world right now. Whether it's news articles or YouTube videos, this AI platform that works as almost a really high-functioning chatbot is just taking the world by storm. And very recently, I saw a video related to Football Manager by Lelujo, where he looked at how ChatGPT might change the way that he records videos and does the YouTube side of FM content creation. But then I thought, well, what about for you guys, the players? How can ChatGPT help you as Football Manager players? So I've had a bit of a play around with it, and we'll see whether it's actually a useful tool by asking it some of the most common questions that we get here on FMSCOUT. So here we are on ChatGPT to test out how it might actually help us as an FM player by asking these common questions. Everything from what's the best tactic, what player should I sign? We're going to ask ChatGPT this, and hopefully it can give us a decent answer. I have had a play around with this before this video, and it seems to be a bit hit and miss in terms of the answers that it gives, and hopefully it won't be so good that it can replace us guys here as content creators. After I've asked it some stuff about FM, I'll talk about how I think ChatGPT could actually function within Football Manager in the future. All very hypothetical, but I thought we should definitely make a video on it. If you do enjoy it, smash the like button for us, subscribe for more content like this, and check out my channel, linked in the description. This one is probably going to be a little shorter than some recent videos, but let's start off by asking it our first question of the day. Often here on the FMSCOUT channel, we get asked the question, what is the best tactic in FM? Now, from my practice, if you ask it something along the lines of who is the best or what is the best player, what's the best tactic, ChatGPT doesn't seem to like that because it has to then rate things and it doesn't want to do that. However, if we just ask it a simple question of give us a good FM23 tactic, hopefully it will work. So let's try. So I asked the question, give me a tactic for FM23, and actually ChatGPT hasn't given us a specific formation or team instructions or anything like that. Instead, it's given us the ideas behind the tactic, suggesting we should try playing a counter-attacking strategy that involves allowing the opponent to have possession of a ball and inviting them to attack. It then gives you the kind of players you'd need to play this style of formation, and it also then tells you to note the opposition that you're playing against. You might have to tweak things. So it's very interesting that it can give this much detail, and it took, I'd say, 5 seconds for all of this to pop up on screen. But I'm going to ask a couple more questions about tactics in the hopes it will give us an actual structure to follow, team instructions, formation, player roles, all of that good stuff. So let's try. Here we go. I've just asked it to give me an example of this tactic to use in FM23, and it's given me a 4-2-3-1. Team mentality is going to be counter, shape is going to be structured, team shape is apparently going to be wide. It's given us some team instructions as well as every single role. Interestingly enough, we've got 2 central midfielders, 1 on defend, 1 on support, a right winger on the attack, a left winger on the attack, and it also seems to have the individual instructions as well. Stay wider, cross more often, roam from position. So it's great to see that it's gone into that much detail. It's then given the whole reasoning behind this, but maybe we can ask for another tactic, see if it gives us something different. Here you go, I've asked for it with a different formation, and it's given me a 3-5-2 now, which is very interesting that so quickly it can do this. It wants to sweep a keeper, 2 centre-backs on the defence duty, make that 3. We've also got a right wing back on support and a left wing back also on support. Very balanced so far. Central midfielder on defend. It all seems pretty generic in that sense, but I should note that I've done this before and it's actually offered me tactics with like an anchor in it and a Raumdeuter, and it really does go into detail. I don't know where it pulls all this information from. I assume it just collates loads of different information from the internet and presents it in such a way that it thinks makes sense. I mean, it hasn't actually done that bad of a job. It's given us 2 different tactics here, fairly similar in terms of the instructions, but in terms of the shape, this one is different, both counter-attacking, and I'm sure if we ask for a tick-attacker or a gegenpress tactic, it could also give us that, but that's a great start. Now let's ask it another common question. I'm asking it how to make a good tactic in FM23. Our final question about tactics, instead of actually asking for a specific one here, it's instead given us some tips and tricks basically on making a good tactic, and this is what Lelujo played into in his video, because he was talking about how he could use ChatGPT to ask these kind of questions and then ask ChatGPT to make a script of this information, and it can do that. Yes, obviously some of the information it gives is wrong and basic, and you'd have to add extra detail. It's not at the level to replace a human YouTuber or anything like that yet, but it's certainly very promising, and I give it a few years and I might be struggling for a job here in making you guys videos, because all you need now is to flesh this out a bit more in a couple years time, then plug all this into an AI that can read out the text. I've also seen there's AI programs that can make your thumbnails now with some descriptions, so it's insane that all of this exists. But as you can see here, it's given us some instructions on making a tactic. It says, making a good tactic can be a complex process, but here are some general tips. Get to know your team, choose a formation, consider your team style, team instructions. It wants us to test the tactic in matches and make adjustments as necessary, analysing the opponents before the games. And actually there is a lot of detail here, and you could make this into a whole video if you wanted. So really impressive that it can provide this much information. But now we're going to get onto some specifics. I want to know some Wonderkids to buy in FM23. Now, if I was to say what are the best Wonderkids in FM23, we get the following response. Here you go, look, it's basically saying it can't give me the best FM23 Wonderkids because it doesn't have the database for it, and its training only goes up to September 2021. So do bear that in mind for some of the information that you're going to see later. So right now it can't give us any specific FM23 Wonderkids, but what if we ask it for football Wonderkids in the wider world, that we can then put that knowledge into FM to try and find them. So let's ask it about some of the best Wonderkids under the age of 16 in football. I've asked it who are some good under 16 football players, and it's basically not followed my instructions exactly, but it has given me 5 pretty well-known Wonderkids in the world of football. But in terms of giving us players to sign in our saves, it maybe isn't the best at that. Okay, I've just asked it a few different questions to try and get a result. I was asking for some cheap players in FM23, but as we know already, it doesn't have that in the database. It can't answer that question. So I just asked it for cheap Football Manager players to see how it may work for us if it was actually updated to have the current database, and it can do it. It's given us 10 players, all of which have a pretty cheap transfer fee, supposedly at least, on Football Manager 21, which is the last one that it seems to have in its database, from Kubo at Real Madrid to Jean Thete Arp. He used to be a very good player to be able to sign, but it has given us the exact information we would have wanted. It's just a shame it's for the Football Manager game from a few years ago. If this was updated, it could definitely be promising, and who knows, maybe if you were stuck in your save in a transfer window, you didn't know who to sign, you could ask it for some right backs to sign in FM23, and if it was updated, it could actually give you some players to potentially sign. So that's very interesting. What if we narrowed it down a little bit? How far can it go if we ask for some Serbian Wonderkids to sign in Football Manager? And it has actually managed to find information. I asked FM23 just to try my luck, but obviously, as we know, it only has 21 data, and it's given us some Wonderkids from Serbia, 10 in fact, and it's still generating them right now. And you might have thought the AI might not be able to go into that much detail and find players from a specific country, but it's done it. It's found Pavlovic, who was at Partizan Belgrade at the time. Apparently, he's now been to Monaco and then RB Salzburg, and it can actually find us some good players. I can't speak for every single player in this list, whether it is a legitimate Wonderkid claim from FM21 or whether it's just picked random Serbian players, but the fact that it can generate this kind of list so quickly is very interesting. But now we're going to move on to our final 2 questions that are a little bit more generic that this AI should be able to help answer. The first one will be transfers. Can ChatGPT give us some transfer tips to help us in the world of FM? So I've asked, how can we make better transfers in Football Manager? And here's the first one. Scout extensively. Set up a good scout network and scout your transfer targets thoroughly. Focus on your team's weaknesses. It's telling us to fill in them positions where we really need players, which all of this is obviously quite basic information. Obviously, it's very basic stuff, but it's so cool that it can do this. And now we'll ask the question that all Football Manager players want to be answered. How can I be better at Football Manager? And here we go. It's given us a step-by-step guide on how we can be better at Football Manager. Now, the good thing is about ChatGPT, at least from when I've used it, I don't know if it's infinite or not, but if you got, say, 10 points here that it's going to give us, it might be 8 tips, it might be 10, however many it gives us. If you ask it for 3 more, let's try it, it will actually give us 3 more, and 9 times out of 10 from what I've seen, they are different to the tips that it's given before. Sometimes they can cross over, and it's just worded differently, but how cool is that? But in the space of a few seconds, we've got 11 different tips on how to get better at Football Manager. Communicate with your players, manage your finances effectively, and then it gives a description on how to do that. Use your budget wisely. Keep track of your income and your expenses. It's so cool that it can do this. And with that being said, does that answer the question of can ChatGPT help us on Football Manager? The answer would be yes, in a way. If it was updated to the newest database, for sure it could. Whether the information itself is actually that useful or beneficial, maybe if you're a complete beginner, it might be. Otherwise, you might look at this and go, well, this is like the most basics of Football Manager. However, with that being said, I do think there are ways that this could help FM in the future, not just from you guys asking it questions, but how it could potentially be integrated in the game. Now, I'm no game designer. I'm not going to say this would be easy. It will probably be impossible for the designers of Football Manager to do. But think about press conferences in Football Manager right now. They're all very basic. People often skip over it because you're being asked the same questions over and over again. But what if we could put some kind of AI like ChatGPT into Football Manager so that it could add a variation every single time on these press conference questions you're being asked, and it might make for a more interesting experience. Obviously, I'm sure the coding behind that would be near enough impossible. Even more than that though, you've seen ChatGPT here. It's been able to give us tactic advice on how to get better, manage our transfers better. I'm sure if you asked it about scouting or youth intakes, it could help with that too. What if in a decade's time or so, there could be a feature in FM where you speak to your assistant manager in the game. You could ask it questions about, oh, we've got a match coming up on the weekend, which striker should we start? And your assistant manager, which would be formed through AI, it could maybe give you some kind of assistance in making that decision. It would say, oh, I would play our tall striker because this team that we're playing against has a smaller back line and we could exploit crosses. Whatever it may be, it could be very cool if somehow some kind of AI like this could be integrated into FM. And it is still years away from being able to replace YouTube content creators in terms of giving these Football Manager tutorials and tips. But even with that being said, if you wanted some quick advice, it would not be a terrible place to come. Let me know your thoughts about it in the comments down below. Do you think this is the future of the way things are going to work going forward? Could you see it integrated into Football Manager? Or do you think it's a little bit of a fad that's going to pass? No one's really going to be bothered about it. In my own opinion, I've been really impressed by it, but let me know your thoughts down below. Smash the like button if you have enjoyed, subscribe for more, and I'll see you next time, guys. Thank you, and goodbye.